Hello and welcome back to No Bullshit. Today we return to talking about climate activist named Greta Thunberg. This girl from Sweden has been making the news for about a year now. She came out last year as this big activist making this big kind of protest movement going across the country. She traveled by boat, by train, trying to get people interested in fighting so-called climate change. Now, think what you want about that issue and about what's going on in the world, temperatures and stuff like that, but the main point of today and the main point that people have been bringing up about Greta is she's really just propped up by the mainstream media. She's being used as a sort of pawn for them to help push their own agendas. She supports all these leftist causes, so they see this cute young girl going around speaking and having her curled hair and all this stuff, and she has this loud voice and she's very outspoken. So they're basically using her as a sort of shield in ways too, because the thing is, it's really hard to criticize a young cute kid like this. She also has issues. She's been known to be depressed and have these sorts of social issues as well. So she's a really hard person to come after, and I'll have to say this right now, right out the gate, I have nothing against Greta Thunberg. I think her problems come from her handlers, her parents, the liberals that are attached to her, that are propping her up. It really has very little to do with her. She's only 16. She's not even graduated from high school. In fact, she's been missing school for weeks now, for almost a year now, because she's been doing all this activist stuff. So she really doesn't know better. I have nothing against her. She seems like a fine kid who thinks she's doing good things, but in reality, she's been brainwashed by a number of people. She's been brainwashed by the liberal mainstream media. Her sweetest country is very far leftist, and as are her parents. Her parents are probably the most to blame here, because they've been known activists and SJW left-wing pushers for many years before Greta even became a thing. So they're the ones in charge here. They're the ones we're really speaking up against and going after, including the mainstream media who's propping up this whole story. We're going to get to the news story soon and why Greta came back into the news real quick, but first, let's just take a quick moment to check out our loyal sponsors at healthwithnobs.com. Collagen really is the closest thing we have to a real fountain of youth, and BioTrust currently has the best collagen on the market. They're offering 50% off right now while supplies last. Looks great, and you can mix it into all kinds of cool drinks like your coffee, a milkshake, some food, some soup. There's really a lot of different ways to eat it, so it makes it a lot of fun. With all that said, I think you guys understand the benefits of collagen and why it's important to check out healthwithnobs.com today. Make sure you check it out, and thanks for your time. Now, let's get back to the show. Great, now that that's out of the way, let's get back to Greta Thunberg. The reason she's in the news again is she just popped up because CNN decided to put her on a little panel to discuss this ongoing health crisis, and this has sparked a lot of controversy. A lot of people started talking about Greta again because it's just really funny and ridiculous. It's like, why would CNN put this 16-year-old girl, she might be 17 by now, but whatever, she's very young, very naive, doesn't know anything about anything. She's not a scientist, not an expert. She's not even fully educated. She's got to get through school still. She's still learning, but for some reason, probably politics and the way left-wingers love to hide behind children and use them to push their stories. Well, things like that are why CNN is propping up Greta, and it's also why people are combating against them recently in this news story this week. Here's an article about more details. It says, social media storm erupts after CNN puts Greta Thunberg on virus panel report. And there you can see Trump weighing in on this picture. And right out the gate, it's just ridiculous. Like we said, Greta Thunberg is just a kid. We're not going against her in any way. It really has very little to do with her, although she is getting there. I mean, in a few more years, once she's like 18 or 19, you kind of have to say, hey, you're a teenager now, you're almost an adult. There's the point where you could start kind of blaming and coming after a person. But right now, she's still young enough to be lenient towards, to say, hey, it's not her fault, it's her handler's fault, it's her family, it's the liberal media's fault, and so on and so forth, as we've stated previously. So with all that said, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and see what this story has to say. An upcoming CNN town hall on the pandemic will feature 17-year-old Greta Thunberg alongside a panel of medical experts. The program, called Facts and Fears, also includes CNN broadcaster Sanjay Gupta, 50, former Health and Human Services Secretary Kathleen Sebelius, 71, and former Centers for Disease Control and Prevention Director Richard Besser, 60. CNN anchor Anderson Cooper, 52, will host alongside Gupta. Okay, so this is an interesting panel all the way, by the way. So not not anyone else is under 50. So we've got older people, which is good because we're on a news show. We're trying to talk about this real virus and the situation. But the name of the show is already kind of silly. It says Facts and Fears. So, I mean, it's not really totally focused on information and delivering you news and reports. When you get to things like fear, you're talking about emotion. You're talking about trying to get people interested based on things not doing with the facts. Now, there is certain amounts of fear and interest in health and safety that is involved in reporting the news, but they're supposed to be delivering kind of unbiased, level-headed information. And if something goes wrong, like if, say, there's a disaster or a problem in the roads, then they sort of warn you, but it should be a more calm, focused kind of warning, not like a crazy, oh my God, we're freaking out. That's fear-mongering. That's what CNN does, and that's what I assume this whole new town hall is going to do. That's why they would bring in someone like Greta Thunberg, because the only reason she's ever brought out is to kind of scare people. She does these really intense, hardcore speeches where she's like, the world is going to end in years. How dare you? How dare you? You remember her famous speeches from last year, and I'm sure something like that will come up again. And that's why she's there. She's there to scare people. She's got that kind of creepy look. Like, kids are already kind of creepy. Sometimes they're put into like these scary movies with these like kind of blank looks on their faces. And this is what they're going for here. They're trying to bring in the fear, and then it just also goes to show, if you look at these other people at the event who are actually like kind of longtime reporters at the very least. I mean, CNN's people are terrible. We all know that they're just total hacks, but at least they've been doing it for a while. At least they have some age under their belts. And then we have a former health secretary and a disease control prevention director, like actual people that might know what they're talking about. Now, you really can't trust much that's on CNN these days, but at least these guys are all adults. I mean, at the very least, they're grown people who have dealt with problems. In addition, they have some significant jobs. They've been exposed to more information, more time that's been alive. But to put Greta Thunberg on this, that's where things definitely get ridiculous. However, social media watchdogs are foaming at the mouth over the choice to place a teen climate activist on a panel with public health experts. What place does Greta Thunberg have in this town hall? Asked Twitter rabble-rouser Yashar Ali to his 618,000 followers. His rhetorical question was liked by more than 12,000 since this morning. Her name is a top trending term on Twitter, and some 30,000 mentions on the platform in just a few hours. In a follow-up tweet, Ali clarified his rhetorical tweet with an explanation. I understand that, but this is a panel of top health experts and administrators. A climate activist would be better suited on a different panel. She's not a climate scientist. It's a matter of placement. CNN's social media was soon served with an onslaught of virtual eye rolls. And there you can see Greta there. Apparently she's dyed her hair this year, so she's got the whole SJW dyed colored hair look. That's new. Interesting choice right there. And then also, in addition, yes, this is an activist, so he wasn't even addressing her age and inexperience and lack of knowledge. He was just saying this is an activist on an expert panel. This isn't supposed to be like, this panel is too mixed. They need to focus on, you know, getting the experts if that's what they want. And if they want an activist panel or some kind of other show, that would be a more appropriate setting. Greta Thunberg, now she's an expert? CNN is a joke, reads a top response to the network's Wednesday announcement. Not picking on the kid, said another. Picking on a news network for featuring a child to inform the public. I remember when my thread about E. coli in romaine lettuce went viral and trended on Twitter, only to have CNN put Food Babe on air to discuss the issue, tweeted Dr. Eugene Gu, referring to another controversial health expert in the media. Greta Thunberg on this panel is an improvement from that, at least. Some have come to Thunberg's defense, including more than a few public figures, arguing that the voice of the youth who will come to inherit an Earth doomed by future pandemics and climate disaster may actually have something to add to the conversation. Well, I'm not sure if I can agree with that divergence, but I can agree with some of those jokes and those points there. That doctor had a good idea, and it just goes to show the kinds of ridiculous people CNN will have on. This is a more of an attack on CNN, if anything, and they'll just bring on anyone and kind of have them on their show. It's not a real news channel. Like, they'll bring on some of the most ridiculous people. This guy was talking about a food babe. I've also noted and talked about how CNN will bring some of the craziest people on as long as they detract and hate on Trump. They've brought on really radical racists, like nationalists, like race baiters, like some of the worst people ever. Some people that, you know, if we even mention mention them in a video, we would be called racist for years. But CNN can bring them on their show, pay them money, support them and prop them up, share their Twitter handles and everything. And that's okay for some reason. I don't get it myself, but that's the way the world works with liberals, the mainstream media. They're fake news mill, this kind of biased information that we're getting from a terrible news source that's hardly even news anymore. It's more like popcorn theater. It's more like a fake news kind of entertainment thing. It's like a mix between kind of infotainment news reporting, pretty girls, here's a kid to make you feel bad, here's a food babe. It's just a bunch of nonsense that makes no sense, and it all comes back to kind of them going for ratings and also going for pushing their biased liberal propaganda. They are blinded by their bias, so they actually think that this Greta Thunberg move is a good one because, oh, she's a famous girl, she's from Sweden, she supports our climate change stuff, let's put her up there, let's get some ratings. But little did they know they're going to get this kind of backlash. Now, there was backlash before, but here's some people that tried to defend her. Unqualified men appear on cable all day, every day, bloviating endlessly, but Greta Thunberg is a bridge too far, okay. Tweeted writer Roxane Gay. So she was trying to make it a male versus female thing, trying to say this was sexist to comment against Greta. Not surprising, because that's why I had to be careful coming against her in this story. But again, it's not necessarily people against Greta herself. It's people against her handlers. She has extraordinary knowledge, and she is the next generation that is left to clean this mess we've made. They wouldn't have her there if she wasn't a powerful voice, wrote Oscar-winning actor Patricia Arquette. Oh my God, wow. She is the worst. No one should be listening to her. I don't know who the writer Roxane Gay was, the previous comment, but Patricia Arquette is just some old washed up actress. I mean, she tries to get political every year. It's disgusting. It's a super cringe fest, and she knows nothing. I mean, she's been acting ever since she was a child. Her family's been in acting in Hollywood for generations. I mean, what does she know? What does she care about this stuff anyway? She just wants power and control. She thinks pushing left-wing stuff is going to make her cool, keep her relevant, keep her working in Hollywood. But really, it just makes her look silly. It's a town hall, not a meeting of scientists, another follower noted. Some of their previous guests have been chef Jose Andres, director Spike Lee, author Laurie Garrett, etc., etc. Well, I don't know about all those names. Director Spike Lee is definitely a legitimate filmmaker, but at least these people are adults. At least these people have a life. Like, at least they've accomplished something. We're talking about a chef, a director, an author. What is Greta? She's not anything. She's an activist. Like, what's an activist? So she speaks out against an issue. I mean, there's not really like a technical training and process to get yourself through there. I mean, sure, she's gotten a lot of attention. She's hyped up a Twitter profile and had this whole business grown up behind her, but that doesn't mean she's like a successful activist. It means she was in there at the right time. She was a young girl who had, like, a cute look to her, innocent, speaking up, and then everyone in the mainstream media latched on and spread her around. Her parents used her as a pawn to get their own things passed, and that doesn't mean she's accomplished or worthy of any kind of space. Now, granted, this is just CNN. This is just a TV show. They can have her on. I'm not saying they can't have anyone on, but it is a bad mix with those other experts, and it is just funny to see Greta getting back out there. Like, I thought this meme was dead, but apparently she's still getting shared around. Thunberg has perhaps wisely been mum throughout this erupting social media showdown, but she hasn't spent the last 3 months lounging in lockdown. On April 30th, UNICEF said that the young activist had launched a Children First campaign to help protect young lives against the pandemic, pledging a grant of €92 or $100,000 awarded by her Danish NGO Human Act toward the effort. Like the climate crisis, the pandemic is a child's rights crisis, said Thunberg. It will affect all children now and in the long term, but vulnerable groups will be impacted the most. I'm asking everyone to step up and join me in support of UNICEF's vital work to save children's lives, to protect health, and continue education. Now, these are all noble causes. We, of course, want to help people at donations and nonprofits. That's all good stuff. That's hard to argue against, too, even though there is a lot of corruption in places like UNICEF, the UN, even charities give very small amounts of what they actually take in back to people. But they are still trying to do good. Greta Thunberg's trying to do good. If CNN wants to have her on, I'm not going to stop them. It's not the end of the world. It's just funny. It's kind of silly. and ridiculous, especially when she's marked up against these experts. People might actually want to know what's going on, but instead we're just hearing the musings of a 17-year-old from another country who hasn't really done much with her life, hasn't really lived long, doesn't have an education. She'll get there. I mean, she's still young. I'm sure she'll figure it out. But the fact that everyone's putting all this emphasis on it now is definitely worrisome, definitely part of the left-wing agenda. And if she was pushing anything else, if she wasn't towing the line with SJWs completely, none of this would ever happen. That about wraps things up. Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys comment your thoughts on everything below. Tell me what you think about Greta. Tell me what you think about CNN bringing on these ridiculous guests. And until next time, make sure you guys like this video too, and we'll see you all on the next video.